Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep today, and I love this stuff. It's a question that I think is on a lot of people's minds right now. Where do breakthroughs really come from? We asked for some listener research, and it seems like things are changing so fast that innovation just isn't happening in the usual places anymore.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating shift, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing that access to information and to technology is really leveling the playing field for everyone.
Yeah.
That means that the next big thing could come from, you know, someone with passion and internet connection and not necessarily, a fancy degree or $1 million lab.
Okay, so let's get concrete. You sent over this story about Laura O'Sullivan. She's 16 years old and developed a cervical cancer detection system using AI. So before we even get into the tech here, what does that tell you about where the future of invention is heading?
I mean, it tells me that assumptions are being shattered
Yeah.
left and right.
Yeah.
Here's someone who didn't wait for permission or for a textbook to tell her what was possible. She saw a problem. The traditional detection methods are slow and can be inaccurate, and just found a solution using AI.
And that's where it gets really interesting. She used something called convolutional neural networks, CNNs, not exactly, dinner table conversation, but essential to her breakthrough. Can you break this down for us?
Sure. Think of it like this. You know how facial recognition on your phone can pick out your face in a crowd?
Yeah.
That's using CNNs to analyze images and find patterns. Laura trained a CNN to do the same thing, but for cervical cells. So her system can spot abnormalities way faster and more accurately than humans can.
So what's the takeaway for someone listening who maybe isn't a tech whiz?
I think the takeaway is just that powerful technology is becoming more and more accessible.
Right.
You don't need a PhD to understand or apply it.
Yeah.
Online learning platforms, open source tools, these are changing the game. Laura's story is just proof that if you got the drive, you can learn and build almost anything.
Okay, hold on to your hats because we've got another teen innovator coming up. Jack Andraka, 15 years old, created a revolutionary pancreatic cancer test.
And it wasn't just a science fair project either. Jack's motivation was personal. He lost a close family friend to pancreatic cancer and was horrified by the limitations of existing tests.
Yeah.
Expensive, slow, and often inaccurate.
So he dives into research and he finds out about this protein called mesothelin, which is present at high levels in the blood of people with pancreatic cancer. So what does he do with this information?
He got creative. Yeah. Jack combined his knowledge of this protein with what he'd learned about nanotechnology and came up with a paper sensor that uses carbon nanotubes to detect mesothelin. Simple, elegant, and incredibly effective.
And the results were mind-blowing. His test is not only significantly more accurate, but also 168 times faster and 26,000 times cheaper than existing tests. We're talking about a test that costs just pennies to produce.
Yeah, and Jack's story, I think, is a powerful example of inspiration, instruction, invitation. It inspires us with its sheer audacity. It instructs us by showing what's possible with a bit of ingenuity. And it invites us to question the status quo and just push the boundaries of what we think is achievable.
So he didn't just invent a test, he completely disrupted the field. It makes you wonder what else is out there waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. And maybe it's not even waiting to be discovered, just waiting for someone to connect the dots in a new way.
Ooh, I like that.
And that brings us to Cukier, who at age 17 discovered a new planet while on a NASA internship.
3 days into the internship, he's analyzing data from the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite test for us space nerds and notices something unusual. At first, he thinks it's just a stellar eclipse, but then
he realizes it's something much more significant, a circumbinary planet. That's a planet that orbits not one, but two stars. Now, these are notoriously difficult to detect, but Wolf's sharp eye and his inquisitive mind led to this incredible discovery.
Yeah, and it wasn't just luck, though, right? He was in the right place. Yes, but he was also prepared to have the knowledge and the curiosity to see what others may have missed.
That's what I find so fascinating about these stories. They're not all happening in labs or universities. They're happening in bedrooms, basements, and in Wolf's case, during a summer internship.
Yeah.
It's about creating what some might call workplace playgrounds.
Okay, I love that idea. So what exactly does a workplace playground look like? Is it, beanbag chairs and ping pong tables, or is it something deeper?
It's definitely more than just fun perks. It's about fostering an environment where curiosity is encouraged, where questions are valued more than answers, and where people feel safe to experiment and even fail.
So it's not just about the physical space, it's about the culture. It's about creating a space where people feel empowered to explore, to think outside the box, and to make those unexpected connections that lead to breakthroughs.
Yeah, it's about leadership. that understands the power of giving people the freedom to play, to tinker, to explore, without the fear of constant oversight or judgment. Think about those classic aha moments in history. Archimedes in the bathtub, Newton and the apple.
Right.
Those weren't exactly planned board meetings.
Right. Those were breakthroughs happening in those in-between
Well,
moments.
exactly.
Yeah. It makes you wonder how many brilliant ideas get shut down before they even have a chance to see the light of day.
And our research actually dives into this, talking about how hierarchy in history can stifle innovation.
Yeah, that's the dark side of expertise, isn't it? We get attached to the ways things have always been done.
Right.
Someone suggests something radical, and the knee-jerk reaction is, that's impossible,
Mm.
or it'll never work.
Yeah, or we tried that before and it didn't work.
Right, exactly.
But this isn't just about stubbornness, right? There's a real fear of the unknown, of rocking the boat, especially when you've got a lot to lose. Absolutely, and that fear can be contagious. It creates a culture where people are afraid to speak up, to challenge the status quo, to even think differently.
Right.
It's like everyone's walking on eggshells, afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah, and we included an article from MIT Sloan in our prep, How to Boost Curiosity in Your Company and Why. It talks about how crucial it is to foster a culture where questions are valued more than answers. Where did that idea resonate with you?
One line that really stuck with me was from Professor Stephen Eppinger. He said, "You want a process that gets you out of the habit of seeing the most experienced person as the one with all the answers." That's so powerful.
Yeah.
It flips the script on traditional hierarchy.
Yeah, it's like saying experience is valuable, but it shouldn't be the only voice in the room.
Exactly.
We need those fresh perspectives, those who haven't been told no 1,000 times to shake things up a little bit.
And the article goes on to say, if we can create a culture in which we're not expecting that at all, then we tend to listen much more inclusively to the whole range of people who are participating.
Right.
That's the key. Inclusive listening. It's not just about hearing people. It's about truly considering their ideas no matter where they come from.
Okay, so we've seen the incredible things that can happen when people challenge assumptions and embrace curiosity, but there's a bigger picture here, right? This
Yeah.
isn't just about isolated breakthroughs. It's about a fundamental shift in how we view innovation itself.
That's right. We're moving away from this idea that innovation only happens in certain places or among certain people.
Right.
The democratization of technology and information means that the next big idea could come from anywhere.
It's exciting, but it also raises a lot of questions. How do we navigate this new landscape? How do we ensure that we're not missing out on those breakthroughs happening outside of our usual circles?
One way is to actively challenge our own assumptions and biases.
Yeah,
We all have them, and they can blind us to opportunities that are right in front of us.
you're right. It's easy to get stuck in our own bubbles, surrounded by people who think and act like us. We might miss the signals, the trends, the emerging ideas that are brewing elsewhere.
Think back to those teen innovators. If those gatekeepers had held on to the belief that only established experts could make breakthroughs, we might not have those incredible cancer detection tools or that new planet on the map.
Yeah. Their stories really highlight that inspiration, instruction, invitation framework that we talked about earlier. They inspire us to think bigger. They instruct us by showing what's possible, and they invite us to join them in pushing the boundaries of innovation.
It's not just about being aware of these shifts, it's about taking action.
Yeah.
The research you sent actually gets very specific about even mentioning a date, Thursday, October 3rd. It marked 90 days to 2025.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time to prepare.
Yeah.
What questions does the research suggest we ask ourselves as we head into this new year?
The first one is, in 2025, do you expect breakthroughs to stem from your organization, industry, or country? That's a gut check right there.
Yeah, it's a reality check. Are we putting all our eggs in one basket? Assuming that the same players will dominate the field forever.
All right. Are we open to being surprised?
Yeah.
The next question builds on that. It asks, what possible biases or blind spots exist within your organization?
Right.
This gets to the heart of how we perceive the world and the opportunities that are out there.
We all have biases. It's human nature. But are we aware of them? Are we actively working to mitigate those biases so that they don't limit our vision and our potential?
And it's not just about individual biases. It's about systemic biases that can be baked into the very structure of an organization. How do we create systems and processes that promote diversity of thought and encourage dissenting voices?
Okay, so we've identified our biases. Now what? The research asks, what barriers prevent challenging the status quo?
This is where the rubber meets the road. It's about uncovering those ingrained beliefs, those unspoken rules, those fears that prevent us from embracing new ideas and approaches.
So it's like shining a light on those hidden obstacles that we might not even realize are holding us back.
Exactly.
Maybe it's a fear of failure, a lack of resources, or simply a culture that doesn't value experimentation.
Whatever those barriers are, we need to identify them and find ways to dismantle them.
Yeah.
Because if we can't challenge the status quo, we can't truly innovate.
And that brings us to the final question, which is perhaps the most actionable. It asks, in 2025, how could updating who you know, what you know, and how you work unlock value? That's a mouthful.
It is, but it's also incredibly insightful. It's about recognizing that our networks, our knowledge, and our ways of working can either be assets or liabilities in this rapidly changing world.
So it's a call to action to be more intentional, more deliberate about how we cultivate our connections, expand our knowledge base, and adapt our approaches to embrace this unprecedented change and opportunity that's all around us.
It's about being proactive, not reactive. It's about anticipating the future and positioning ourselves to not just survive, but thrive in this era of constant disruption.
And it's easy to get lost in the abstract concepts here. But this isn't just some philosophical debate. This is about real-world impact.
Absolutely. We've talked about teen innovators tackling cancer and discovering new planets, but this is happening on a much broader scale. Every field, every industry is being disrupted by those who are willing to challenge assumptions and connect the dots in new ways.
Right. It's about solving problems, creating opportunities, and building a better future. And it's not just about those extraordinary individuals that we've highlighted. It's about all of us.
We each have the potential to contribute to this wave of innovation, no matter our age, background, or expertise. It's about recognizing that small ideas can have big impacts, that curiosity can lead to breakthroughs, and that the future belongs to those who are brave enough to question, to experiment, and to imagine a different world.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's remember these powerful questions. Let's take stock of our assumptions, our biases, and the barriers that might be holding us back. And let's commit to updating our networks, our knowledge, and our ways of working so that we can fully embrace the incredible potential of this new era of innovation. So it feels like we're really at this turning point, where the old rules of innovation are being rewritten in real time. But how do we actually shift our thinking and our actions to, make the most of this?
Well, the research you shared, it doesn't just leave us hanging with these big questions. It gets down to brass tacks with some really practical advice.
Okay.
The first suggestion is almost deceptively simple.
Right.
Audit your circles.
Okay.
Look at your boardroom, your meetings, even your email inbox. Who are you constantly surrounded by?
That's interesting because it's not just about who we know. It's about whether those connections are reinforcing our existing worldview or challenging it.
Exactly. If everyone's nodding along and agreeing with you all the time, that might feel good in the moment, but it's probably a sign that you're stuck in an echo chamber.
And that can be dangerous, especially when the world outside is changing so rapidly. We need those diverse perspectives, those dissenting voices, to help us see the blind spots that we might be missing.
The next piece of advice builds on that idea. It challenges us to question the status quo as a measure of success. How often do we hear phrases like, "We've always done it this way," or "That will never work here"?
Ugh, those are innovation killers for sure.
Right.
They shut down creativity and make people hesitant to even suggest new ideas.
And sometimes we need to apply that same critical lens to ourselves. How often do we fall into those patterns of thinking? Especially when we've been successful in the past, it's easy to get complacent and assume that what worked before will always work.
It's like that saying, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. But what if we want something different? What if we want to break through to the next level?
That's where the next suggestion comes in. Question your reliance on experts whose successes are based on past frameworks. Think about it. The world is changing at an exponential pace. What worked 5 years ago, even 1 year ago, might be completely irrelevant today.
It's a reminder to constantly be learning, to be seeking out new perspectives, and to be willing to challenge the assumptions that we've held for so long.
And it's not just about seeking out new information. It's about being open to new ways of doing things. The research encourages us to rethink our entire discovery process. Who are we collaborating with? How are we generating ideas? Are we truly embracing diversity of thought and experience?
That resonates with those workplace playground environments that we talked about earlier. It's not enough to just have a diverse team. You need to have a culture that allows those diverse voices to be heard and valued.
Exactly. It's about creating a space where people feel safe to experiment, to take risks, and to even fail, because often those failures are the stepping stones to the most significant breakthroughs.
And those breakthroughs might not always come from the expected sources. I mean, remember Lori, Jack, and Wolf? They didn't wait for permission to innovate. They just went out and did it. They challenged the assumptions of their fields and created something truly remarkable.
Their stories are a powerful reminder that innovation can come from anywhere and anyone. The key is to create an environment where that potential can flourish,
Yeah.
where curiosity is celebrated, where questions are encouraged, and where the status quo is constantly being challenged.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into unexpected breakthroughs, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this conversation?
I hope they feel empowered to embrace the unknown, to question everything, and to believe that they too can be a source of innovation no matter where they come from or what their background is. The future belongs to those who are willing to challenge assumptions, to connect the dots in new ways, and to create a world where breakthroughs aren't just unexpected, they're inevitable.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining me on this journey of discovery. And to our listeners, thanks for sending in such thought-provoking research. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.